Test This, the podcast designed to help software testers understand risk and adopt new testing solutions with ease and confidence. Your host is Mahamadou, a quality assurance consultant with over 10 years of experience across multiple industries. In each episode, he'll talk to different experts and learn from them about how they test.
Hi, everyone. Today, I am excited to welcome Debbie O'Brien. Debbie is a true leader in modern test automation. She is a longtime open source contributor on a GitHub store. She's a former principal technical program manager at Microsoft. She was leading developer advocacy for Playwright end-to-end MCP agents. Over the past years, she's been shaping the Playwright product and documentation. And if it's not enough, she's built a global community and created the Playwright Ambassador Program with talks, demos, workshops, and a huge presence on Discord, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So Debbie, thank you for being here and being open to share your experience.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And hi, everyone.
Yeah, hi. So in this episode, we will be mainly talking about testing with Playwright. We'll start with Debbie's background and experience. Then we'll understand what is Playwright. Next, we'll talk about common mistakes people tend to make using it. After that, we will discuss principal tips to make most of Playwright. And finally, we'll share some steps to get started in your journey if you want to get to the next level with this tool. So without further ado, let's get started. Debbie, can you tell us about your background on how you start helping the testing community?
Sure. I don't know. It's a very long story. I'm going to have to give the short one. But basically, I guess I used to work, well, I don't know. I actually started off about 7 years ago. I had to learn JavaScript because I was a front-end developer, but only with HTML and CSS. So I did a kind of a 9 months of full-time studying to learn absolutely everything you could possibly know. And testing was a part of it. So I learned testing and it just became part of the normal. It was what you just did, right? It wasn't an add-on. It was part of how you build things. So when I went into the job that I started in, testing was well, we need to be testing. We're building a component. We need to test it. So I started introducing testing as part of the workflow in that company. And then from there, it just kind of went and evolved. In the agency, I was also ensuring that, companies tested their applications, that we tested the code that we were delivering as an agency. And yes, many clients would kind of try and get rid of testing because they're cutting costs, right? So well, why do we need to pay for testing? Let's get rid of that. And I'm like, no, we have to test because when we didn't test what we were building, we ended up with so many problems. Testing was super important. So yeah, it just basically started like that. And then the job came up for Playwright and I was asked to, a friend of mine said to me, you should go for this. And I was like, I don't even know what Playwright is because I was using Cypress back then. Playwright was still very new. So I applied for it and I basically did get the job and I had to learn Playwright literally from the start. I knew nothing about Playwright when I started.
Okay, and what makes you evolve from being a simple tester to a global leader in this Playwright industry?
I have no idea. I don't know what happened. I guess I was very lucky that I got to work on an amazing project. And I think that really helps. It's, I just drove things forward and showed it to people and showed what was possible. But really, the work that the engineers do, they're the ones that really deserve the round of applause and all the kind of love from the community, because I'm just the face, right? But all the hard work is done behind the scenes by them. So yeah, I was very lucky to be able to be the face of a product that is so amazing and that has an amazing team of engineers behind it.
What was the most important lesson you learned over the year being the face of this product?
I don't know. I guess it's always about being listening to the community, because the Playwright team is a very small team, and we build what we think people need and want and are going to use on a big, large scale enterprise project. But we don't have that particular firsthand knowledge or experience. So when it's the community that comes to us and says, we need this, or this should work better this way, or, we're looking for this kind of feature, listening to the community has helped Playwright grow in the way it has grown to be loved by the community. And I think that's really important. Working in open source and listening to the community helps a product grow in the right way, in my opinion. So yeah, I think listening to everyone and being able to bring that knowledge and that back to the team, and then I guess bringing AI into it as well. That was kind of, a lot of people were like, we don't want Playwright to have AI. They love Playwright. And I think AI a year ago was a little bit kind of more scary. And they were afraid they were going to lose like the greatness of Playwright. But kind of pushing AI forward and showing people that actually, AI can actually write good tests and can help you in your software development journey, in your QA journey, etc. And I think that was kind of also really important to learn, listen to people that what they were afraid of, but also show them what was going to be capable and how AI was going to help them.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like AI is very important nowadays. And speaking of Playwright, can you define it? What is Playwright and why it's important to learn it as a tester?
Yeah, so Playwright is a framework for testing and end-to-end tests, or for basically browser automation. So, I mean, many years ago, when we used to test manually, and there are maybe some still manual testers out there, I don't know, but you basically would like say test a form. So think about a form you had to fill out, and I've done this where I've built a form and then had to test it myself by filling out all the things, clicking it, uploading the image, and then like you press something else, and then it fails, just something doesn't work, and then you got to go and do that all again manually, and that takes a lot of time. And Playwright has a way of basically opening that browser and filling out that form for you as a test, and then basically that test is created, you have that test and you can just rerun that test. You don't have to manually do those steps again and again and again. And you can generate these as well. There's cool tools called CodeGen, which means you can actually manually go and click and fill out these forms or do whatever that action is on the website that you want to test, and it will write that test code for you. And then you can just generate some assertions or write some assertions yourself. We now have AI agents that can now do this for you, but before AI agents even came about, we had the tools to be able to help you generate test code. Once you have tests running, it means basically when you're creating a new feature or doing something and making changes to your applications, if you have tests, if you have something there that's going to help you should something change and break something, you're not going to ship that to production and everything's going to work as it is expected if you have those tests written. So testing is super, super important. And Playwright is a great framework because it's easy to learn, it's easy to use. But also it's got these extra things like it auto waits for elements to be on the page before it actually clicks them. So you don't have to like add timeouts and do all this manual kind of thinking of how am I going to wait for this to appear. Playwright is going to wait for it to appear for you. And there's a lot of things like that are included, like isolation. So every test is isolated one from another. So you don't have to worry about things jumping, context into into the other test. And there's so many things, like it runs in parallel, just out of the box. I always forget it. There's so much like, for us, it's kind of like, this is just the normal, but actually for some people, this is not the normal. This is like, wow, like this is all under the hood. This just works in Playwright. So Playwright for me is like the best framework out there for testing by far.
Yeah. And outside AI, what are the most popular features that can help a tester on day to day? Because I remember a video of you when you talk about how to create a documentation, for example.
What are the best features? Um, I think the most popular feature is definitely UI mode, because then you're able to run your tests and see them all. Because what UI mode has is a trace viewer, a view of the trace of your test. So you can walk back and forward in time to actually go through what happened. And you've got then like your network, your console. So you can see if there was any errors in there. You've got basically everything like a Chrome DevTools kind of, right there at your fingertips. Plus you've got the actual test code. And then you can go through each of your tests. You've got watch mode. So it's a really, really great feature of Playwright is the UI mode, which includes the trace viewer, and the trace viewer is even on UI, on CI. So if your tests are failing on CI, you've got this whole trace of your tests. I think that's really, really important for debugging.
Okay. And earlier you mentioned also Cypress. What differentiates Playwright from other tools?
There are a lot of difference. Most of it is in how it's built, and I think it's just because JavaScript evolved, so Playwright was able to be built in a better way because the JavaScript was better, and that's one of the key differences in how it's built. Um, and then obviously the things like running parallel, test isolation, all those kind of things that sometimes in Cypress you would have to do yourself. Playwright just took all that away from you so that you didn't have to worry about that. You could just go ahead and write tests.
Okay. And you also mentioned AI. Can you
Yes.
explain a bit what Playwright MCP or agents are and how they can
Yeah. Yeah,
be
so
used?
there's actually two things here, right? It's a bit confusing, I know, but there's Playwright MCP and there's Playwright agents. So let's talk about Playwright MCP first, and then I'll jump into agents. So Playwright MCP is a way for you to get your agents, your LLMs, your Copilot, for example, to use the browser, to navigate your browser and click and do things for you. So stupid things like you could buy a table, you could go shopping, you can literally do anything you want. Whatever you can do in the browser, Playwright can now do it, and your agent can do it for you. So that's kind of like really, really cool because it can automate anything that you want. And then obviously, like you could write tests as well. However, the agents are even better at writing tests. So if you're actually wanting to test something, Playwright agents are built into the Playwright framework. You just run a command, it's going to set up the agents for you. There are 3 agents: one to generate your tests, one to create the test. So generate the test plan, the test plan. First of all, it navigates to your site and basically starts using the site as a user would, and it generates a test plan for then the next agent to go ahead and create the tests based on the test plan. And as it's doing that, there's some amazing tools because it uses a different MCP server under the hood. And there's some amazing tools in there. So it's actually able to verify the tool calls. It's able to verify the Playwright code. So when it actually creates a locator, it's really the right locator. It's reading the accessibility tree of your site to actually really understand and know what the correct name, accessible name for that button is or for that list is, etc. And then it's able to write really, really good quality code. Then it goes ahead and it runs the test with the healer agent, and it heals it. It automatically fixes the test for you by basically running it in debug mode. There's a debug MCP tool in there, and it debugs it. And then it's able to read the console messages, the console errors, and network errors, and debug your test for you. But here's the thing, it doesn't just like have the instructions of fix all my tests and make them green. It's like if it cannot fix the test because there's an API error, or for example, it will just add it, fix me, and then it will basically skip it and say, hey, I'm putting it back into your hands. I can't fix this. This is not working, and I think this is a network request error, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Go ahead and, you go ahead and fix that because it's not the test that's failing. It's the actual API that's failing, for example. So that's really, really cool and really beneficial, and you can kind of trust it much more than, just an agent that was just going to make everything green. It doesn't do that. So very, very cool. And they're your kind of like 2 things. Playwright MCP can do some amazing things. I still love it. It's really, really good. And you can automate and browse, do anything you want basically when it comes to getting your LLM to browse the internet for you. And agents are specifically created for testing. And if testing is your thing, I highly recommend you to try out the Playwright agents and just start generating some tests, because it's really insane how good the tests are that I generated. It's insane. And you can use them individually, right? I mentioned 3 agents, but maybe you already have all the tests created and you just want to like fix some tests. You could just run the healer agent. Or maybe you already have a test plan created and you just want to generate tests based off a test plan that you already have. So it's endless. You can just do anything you want. It's really cool.
Okay. So now the question that comes to my mind is like, what are we required to do as a testers, and how we can bring value with this tool, since it does many things?
Yeah, I know. And it's kind of scary, right? Because you're like, oh, if it's going to do everything, what am I meant to do? It's really important to guide and oversee things. We're not at the stage where we're giving everything over to AI and we're sitting back and just drinking coffee. We need to understand their application. We need to ensure that the applications that are being built are very accessible, because Playwright runs and builds tests very, very well if the application is very well built. If your application has a lot of problems and doesn't have any accessibility, then obviously the tests are not going to be as good. They'll be more brittle and they might break more often because it's going to be relying on CSS selectors or XPaths and things that are not good. So as a tester, you also have to kind of like maybe ensure that the site is adhering to those standards. And overseeing the test. First of all, like start reading through the test plan and saying, yeah, this is a good test plan, or maybe I don't need to test all that, or maybe that's not, or maybe, so reviewing, I think, is very important. And, checking out those edge cases that everything is being covered, understanding the application as much as possible so that the agent did cover everything, all the user journeys that were important to be covered, and really guiding it, and then really understanding the code so that if that test is actually very good and properly testing something that you would expect it to test. And if it's not, then, being able to step in and kind of improve that test. So I think there's still a very important role for the software tester. And I think it's very important, or for the QA engineer or whatever it's role that you have, even just a developer writing Playwright tests. It's very important to understand how the framework works, and how things should be tested. And if you don't, just use AI to help you on that journey. I think the problem is as well, we are shipping more and more features more and more quicker. We are building more applications. We are constantly doing more. So we need to test even more. And that role is there. So if you are in a tester role, you need to learn the testing tools that are available to you using AI as much as possible, because that is where things are going. So get on top of it and experiment and improve your prompts, your instructions, your skills, all those kind of files that you need to ensure that the tests run how you would expect them. Just keep experimenting, playing, and ensuring that your agents are doing an amazing job. Yeah.
Okay. And I think you've noticed not many people that get into it. What's the most common mistakes you see people or teams tend to make using Playwright?
People just add timeouts for no reason. And even the agents sometimes do that. And I'm constantly like saying, can you just remove those timeouts and, do something better, improve that code without a timeout? And then they go ahead and go, oh, you're right. Yeah, I'll just remove the timeout because we don't need timeouts. So I think even sometimes the agents think they need a timeout because other testing tools needed timeouts. I would refrain from as many timeouts as possible and try and use, the built-in timeouts that just come with Playwright under the hood. Zero timeouts as much as possible, and then only add them in as you need it, because otherwise if you start adding it and adding it and adding it, you end up with this big mess sometimes of a timeout mess, and everything then runs super slow, and then you get super frustrated. So yeah, I would definitely say that try and improve things as much as possible so that you don't have to add timeouts. And sometimes that might mean improving the application as well. And I think that's very important. As a tester, make sure you're talking to those developers and saying, hey, this JavaScript's really slow. Do you really want me to, add some timeouts? Can you not improve the code?
Yeah. And you also mentioned self-heading, but I noticed like flaky tests are the pain point for everyone. What is the top cause for flakiness according to you, and how can Playwright help in this area?
I'm not sure. There's many reasons for flaky tests. Sometimes it's just race conditions. Sometimes, like it's making sure I think making sure your locators are very, very good. And unique locators are going to help a lot, so that, there's not like a couple of different locators on the page and then it's, one gets loaded. And I mean, Playwright is a very good way of ensuring that only one locator can exist. Otherwise, it doesn't know which one to click, right? So that's one thing. But yeah, race conditions. And if you're not using the locators properly, that's another big problem for flaky tests. Because if you're not using, if you're using XPath or things like that, if you're using if you're using assertions that don't have the auto wait built in, so instead of using async, for example, you just use the normal expect to be, that can cause problems because it's not waiting, and then you've got issues. So definitely following Playwright's best practices and using the right built-in assertions and locators definitely help with ensuring that your tests are less flaky.
Okay. For new testers into automation, is there a specific programming language you recommend to learn?
Yeah, TypeScript is by far the best and has the most features. It's the one we focus on the most because it's the biggest amount of community members. So that is our key for sure. But then there is Python, which is pretty high up there, but definitely still not as near and close to TypeScript. So the agents, for example, are only available in TypeScript, not in Python. So depending on what you require, I would totally go with TypeScript if you are capable of learning that and are willing to. I think that's the best route to go down. But if you are totally just a .NET developer and really just want to, just write some tests and only use Blazor and C#, whatever, you can totally do that. You just won't have be as feature rich. But it's available in Java, in .NET, in Python, and in TypeScript or JavaScript. But TypeScript, literally totally worth using TypeScript because of the type safety.
Okay. I noticed DevOps is very popular right now. And how do you recommend for teams to integrate Playwright into CI/CD pipeline in a way that catches issue?
Yeah, so I would check the documentation on Playwright for the different providers that are out there. But I obviously use GitHub, and GitHub is by far the best. And we basically include a GitHub Actions when you install Playwright. So therefore, you don't have to do any work in getting it to just run on CI. You just have to push to GitHub, and on your pull request, your tests are going to run. So it requires zero effort and zero work. But if you are working in that kind of environment and you understand it even more, you can go deeper and you can even do sharding, which is really, really cool. So if you've got loads and loads of tests, you can split them up over different machines, and then you can have tests run on different shards in parallel. And therefore, it can make things much, much quicker by splitting those up. And definitely check out sharding. Check out the documentation on running on CI. There are other providers you can run it on, of course. It's really, really easy to set it up. It's really not difficult. And I'm telling you, anyone can do it, especially if you use GitHub. Anyone can do it in a matter of seconds. I have a video on that on a couple of blog posts, and there's documentations on that as well.
Do you recommend practices around reporting, debugging, triaging?
So if you're using TypeScript, there's a HTML reporter. That's the first thing that you have. So this is from CI. If you have to debug on CI, you've got the HTML reporter and the trace viewer. Traces just mean that you can download a full trace of your failing test. You can include videos and screenshots if you really want to, but really they can be very heavy, and you have to really think about, do I really need a video? You probably don't. But understanding how the traces work, going back and forward and reading the console, the network of that trace, will really, really help in debugging. And there's also now AI built into the trace viewer, so you can there's a little copy prompt button. You can go ahead and click on that button and then paste it into any of your LLM. So Copilot, for example, and just paste it in there. And then it will kind of give you an idea of hey, what's going on in this test, what's happening. And then from there, you can go ahead and fix that, or at least almost get a good fixed version of that. So that's basically from CI. Definitely worth checking out. And then if you're just in development mode, UI mode is absolutely amazing, and totally encourage you to, while you're debugging your tests, use that. And then use your agents. If you need to debug, just get your agents to go ahead and heal the tests for you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now we're going to the end of this last section of this interview. If a manual tester will tell you, I want to be a test automation engineer in 2026, what first steps would you suggest?
If you want to start, or you're already
Like if I'm a manual tester, and if I'm a manual tester, I want to become a test automation
Mm.
engineer today. What will be the first steps would you suggest?
Yes, stepping away from manual testing and moving into automation and moving fast so that you can actually use AI. I think you need to understand the benefits of automation and then the benefits that AI can bring you to help you on that journey. Because, see, this is a thing, right? At the end of the day, you're going to work for a company, and working for a company means you are helping a company be successful. In order to help a company be successful, you need to be improving the code or finding bugs, but it's also a cost, right? The company's paying you to do something. So you really need to think about how can I help the company achieve more with less money, right? That's at the end of the day, that's what all companies want, achieve more with less. And sometimes it's maybe you that has to come forward and say, do you know what? Playwright's got some agents and we can generate tests and I can have 100 tests for you in a space of a couple of days, which would have taken months to do. And if you can come along and show that value to a company, you could be totally hireable because not all testers are actually pushing the AI forward and they're kind of, holding back a little bit. And the companies are therefore not getting the full benefits of what AI can do. And this is going to happen and AI is going to, do more and people are going to use it more and more, especially this year. So get on the AI train and literally start playing around with as many of these testing tools out there that is possible. I'm going to talk about Playwright here. Understand how Playwright agents work. Start getting them to test whatever application you can come up with. You can literally just test any application nowadays and just really then come along to a company, whatever company you're working for, if you're just starting in a new company, and start showing them that the value that this can bring, because it is scary that oh, but it might take over my job and stuff like that. But it's going to take over a lot of the manual tasks that we do. And we need to accept that. And we need to learn what can we do to bring value. And then we need to use that to our advantage. So yeah, work with AI as much as possible and don't be afraid of it.
Okay. And for people who are looking for a job, for example, do you recommend some project or certification, for example?
Yeah, so I would follow the Playwright ambassadors, and they have a couple of courses already on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn Learning, there's a few very good courses by some Playwright ambassadors and Microsoft MVPs, and they would be my top choice in getting up to skill and up to level in Playwright. And then obviously you can read documentation. And you can follow the videos I've created, the videos in the Playwright channel or my personal channel. But the most important thing you can do besides certifications is build yourself, test it yourself, learn yourself, and just basically be constantly doing. You can read as much as possible, but if you're not doing it yourself, if you're not the one pressing the keys, you're not really fully learning. So really just dive in and just test as much as possible and find out ways of how to improve a company's tests.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true because I watch those videos and they're easy to digest and you can just follow along and that way you can see you're making good progress.
Yeah.
And yeah, and looking back, is there anything you wish you learned earlier about testing or test automation?
Anything I wished I'd learned. I don't know. I guess I I don't know. I don't know actually. I could say I wish I had brought testing in earlier, but I think I did my best in bringing testing into as many companies as I worked for. I definitely like having more time to dive deeper and test more things, more enterprise scale. That would have been amazing, but I never had the time to do that. So everything I test has been quite kind of small or demo kind of code. And being able to jump into the real big enterprise problems. I never had the chance to do that. Would have been nice in the past to have done that. But yeah, it's hard to do
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, right. So do you have a final advice for people who are listening who dream to becoming a test automation engineer?
Oh, I think only do it if you really love it. Because if you have a passion for this, you will succeed and do amazing. If you're doing it just to try and make money or just to get a job because you can't find something better to do, I think that's going to be harder. Because I think when it comes to this, if you have a passion for something, you're going to excel and you're going to learn everything. It won't be like a chore. It'll be like you want to succeed, you want to learn, and you're going to want to improve things. So if you do have that, then go forward and then learn in public as well. And even as a tester, the testing community is pretty amazing. So get to know as many people as you can in the community. Reach out on LinkedIn, talk to people, put your thoughts out there and don't be afraid to kind of say, hey, I've just tried this out in testing. What do you think? Or, be open to listening to other people's ideas and talk to people and network with them as much as possible so that you can learn and grow.
Okay, so that was my last question. So thank you, Debbie. It's been such a great conversation. I've learned a lot from you. So thank you for taking the time to share your insights. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome, and best of luck everyone out there in testing, and happy testing, everyone.
Okay, thank you. So for anyone interested, I will share your LinkedIn page, your YouTube channel, and your
Sure.
personal website. All the link will be available. So that concludes today's episode on how to test this. I hope you found today's episode valuable. If you did, please share it with your colleagues and stay tuned for upcoming episodes. We will continue to learn from experts about their favorite testing tools and tips to become a better software tester. I am Mamadou, and this is How to Test This. Thank you very much and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.